I am choosing scenario 1, the best friend's brother, for this story. That weekend, the air felt heavier than usual, like it was holding its breath alongside me. And from the moment I saw Daniel standing in the doorway of the lake house, his hands tucked casually into his pockets, his smile curved just faintly, I knew I was stepping into dangerous territory. He was my best friend's older brother, freshly divorced and almost twice my age. The man I had silently labeled off-limits for as long as I could remember, and yet there we were, alone, snow beginning to fall outside, an accidental touch waiting for its moment to change everything. My life until then had been steady. I had built it around careful choices, a mid-level marketing director's career that paid well without consuming me. A quiet apartment filled with warm light and the scent of vanilla candles, friendships that stretched back decades. My best friend, Claire, was my anchor, the sister I had chosen, and her family had always felt like an extension of mine. I cherished the constant hum of connection, Sunday brunches, midweek wine nights, that predictable rhythm of belonging. I was married once, to a man whose steadiness I mistook for safety, but that ended 2 years ago when he left with someone younger, and I had been telling myself I was done with risk ever since. On Friday, Claire had planned the whole group getaway, but when she was called away last minute for a work emergency, it turned into just me and Daniel, something that felt innocent at first, but quickly began weaving threads of tension I could feel in my pulse. The first shift wasn't even spoken. It was in the way he handed me a mug of coffee Saturday morning, steam curling between us, his fingers brushing mine longer than necessary. His voice was low when he asked if I had slept well, and I could not ignore how my stomach tightened at the sound. That afternoon, as the snow thickened, we found ourselves in the living room, with the fire crackling, shadows flickering against the walls. He told me about his divorce, a quiet confession about years of trying to make something work with a woman who never really saw him. The honesty in his eyes made me forget he was supposed to be Claire's brother. And nothing more. I told him about my ex, the silence in the final months, how grief doesn't just come from death, but from watching the life you thought you had dissolve. His deep laugh, when I said I had started baking bread just to fill the empty hours, wrapped around me like a blanket. The hours passed differently with him. Every glance felt loaded. Every laugh a bridge to somewhere neither of us dared name. By evening, the tension was as real as the snow pressed against the windows. I could feel my breathing change whenever he moved near me. Even the smallest touches, a hand to my elbow, knees brushing accidentally under the table, sent my thoughts spiraling. I told myself it was just loneliness playing tricks. But when I stood by the window, watching snowflakes drift under the porch light, and felt the heat of him quietly step up beside me, my resolve started to crumble. His sleeve brushed mine, and even that whisper of contact set my heart racing hard enough to hear in my ears. If this confession has you holding your breath, hit like and share, because you will not believe what happened when the storm trapped us for the night. The wind howled outside, and we sat by the fire while the power flickered. He handed me a blanket, and without quite asking, sat close enough that my knee pressed to his. We talked about music, about books, about how life turns you into versions of yourself you never expected. There was no need for grand gestures, just the soft weight of his attention. At one point, he told me I seemed lighter here, away from the city, and I tasted that truth in the quiet between us. When thunder rolled distantly, I realized how safe I felt next to him, and how dangerous that safety might be. I could smell cedar smoke from the fireplace, feel its warmth on my skin, but beneath that comfort was an entirely different heat, something sharp and alive. I looked at his hand resting on the arm of the couch and imagined what it might feel like closing around mine. The storm became our cocoon, cutting us off from the rest of the world and unexpectedly from the old rules I thought I lived by. Later, as the fire burned low, he caught my gaze in a way that pulled the air from my lungs, slow, deliberate, as if memorizing me. I saw in his eyes something I had not been offered in a very long time. Not possession, not casual interest, but recognition. It terrified me and thrilled me equally. I turned away first, afraid Claire's face might flash in my mind, reminding me why this was wrong, but she did not appear. Instead, it was my own reflection in the window, flushed and alive. When I finally said goodnight, his "sleep well" followed me up the stairs, curling through my chest like smoke. The next morning, the storm had broken into clear light. He was making breakfast when I came downstairs, sun cutting across the kitchen. Catching in his hair, he smiled without hesitation, sliding a plate toward me, and my hands trembled as I took it. We talked lightly, casually, but the undercurrent was still there, moving between us like a current neither wanted to leave. When we loaded the car to leave, his hand brushed mine again, and this time I didn't move away. Driving home alone, the rules I thought defined me felt different now, not erased, but loosened, as if someone had cracked open a door I had kept locked for too long. I thought of his laugh, of the way he had looked at me like there was something worth seeing, worth knowing. And I realized I was hungry for more than safety. This was a dangerous appetite, but it was also the first time in years that I felt my own pulse in the present moment, not caught in the past or dulled by fear. I do not know where Daniel and I go from here, whether the world will let us turn an accidental touch into something lasting. But I do know that second chances rarely arrive neatly packaged. Sometimes they come wrapped in risk, in the storm of a forbidden weekend, in the eyes of someone you were never supposed to want. And maybe, just maybe, that is how love sneaks back in. If you crave more raw emotional confessions, please like, share, and subscribe. Your next chapter awaits.